Tonight on The Wrap, anti-Jewish terror on the streets of London.
It's our job to make sure that they feel safe and secure. It's our job to make sure that we absolutely deal with the roots of anti-Semitism and extremism.
A community under attack vented its fury today at the police and a government that many believe is failing to protect them. Resign and shame on you, they chanted after 2 Jewish men were stabbed.
What we've heard.
Tonight we'll ask if Keir Starmer's government is doing enough to keep Jewish people safe. Plus, the King in New York, Charles, says he is deeply concerned about the Golders Green attack as he honours the victims of 9/11. And no more Mr. Nice Guy. A gun-toting Donald Trump posts an AI image of himself and says the King would have supported his war. But with no end in sight, oil prices surged to their highest since the conflict began. Well, we discuss the day's biggest stories with the journalist and broadcaster, Jenny Kleeman, and the political commentator, Adam Bolton. Plus a first look at the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers. Well, hello, good evening, and welcome to Jenny and to Adam. So the Jewish community is reeling tonight after another anti-Semitic attack. Adam, Jenny, here we are again.
It's totally shocking, completely not surprising, a sad day for everyone in Britain, regardless of whether or not you're Jewish. And I think the problem here is the kind of ambient atmosphere of anti-Semitism. It's not just a question of security for Jewish people. It's about the normalisation of anti-Semitism over the past few years.
Adam?
I would echo that. I would try to look on the bright side with 2 points. One, that the victims who've now been named are, as far as we can tell, going to recover. They're doing well. And secondly, that we have gun laws in this country.
Adam, Jenny, speak more in a moment. Well, Britain's most senior policeman said he understood why Jewish Londoners feel afraid and angry after the latest attack on their community. Lisa Holland reports now from Golders Green in North London.
Once again, the Jewish community is reeling after yet another attack on the streets of Britain. This video shows the start of a terrifying few minutes in North London as the attacker, running, is seen lunging towards a man who shouts for help. Then he finds his second victim at a bus stop, the victim's clothing identifying him as a member of the Jewish community. Jewish security volunteers, passers-by, and the police detain and pin down the suspect after he'd stabbed the 2 men, one in their 30s and another in their 70s, leaving them with serious injuries.
Drop the knife! Mate, you're under arrest on suspicion of attempted murder. And given the opportunity...
James Marlowe watched events unfold in front of where he lives and filmed as the suspect was taken away by ambulance.
I saw the attacker when I came out of the building, on the ground, face down, being treated by the Jewish paramedics called Hatzalah, and they were treating him for a good 15 or 20 minutes. Police were around, helicopters in the sky, more residents coming out because they could hear a lot of commotion.
What's the reaction from people in the community that there's been another incident?
A lot of people around here have been expecting that. They hope it won't come and they get on with their daily lives, picking up their kids from school, work and everything else and shopping, but they've been expecting it.
This is the latest incident targeting the Jewish community and comes just weeks after 4 ambulances run by Jewish volunteers were set on fire in an arson attack in the same part of North London.
We were so shocked and so saddened, but not surprised. We have been asking, God forbid, where will the next incident be? When will it be? Today we found out the answer, but this cannot continue.
Shame on you!
The Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police and the local MP were heckled at the scene. There's frustration amongst those who believe not enough police protection is provided for them.
Let me be clear, we've seen a rise in racist and anti-Semitic hate crime. And whilst I can't comment on live investigations, we know that some individuals are being encouraged, persuaded or paid to commit acts of violence on behalf of foreign organisations and hostile states. If you act out of hatred, racism or anti-Semitism, we will come after you and you will face the consequences.
What we've heard...
An Iran-aligned group said it was responsible for the stabbings, though no evidence has been provided to back that up. It means their unsubstantiated claim could just be opportunistic. People we spoke to after the incident seemed horrified, yet resilient.
What does everybody feel?
That it's not safety anymore to walk on the street.
This is a community which says it is continuously looking over its shoulder, fearful of those who see them as their enemies. Lisa Holland, Sky News, North London.
Well, let's get the latest then from our correspondent Olivia Guthrie, who is in Golders Green for us tonight. And there has been a protest there, albeit fairly small this evening. Give us a sense of what the mood is there and indeed what news of the two who were stabbed.
Well, indeed, it has been a pretty febrile and angry atmosphere here today. There was that Stop the Hate March, as you say, where protesters said that they were angry that the police, politicians and the media only turn up in the wake of attacks like these, and they say do nothing to stop the anti-Semitism that is behind them. And after the Met Commissioner, Sir Mark Rowley, was trying to speak here today doing a press briefing, he was, as we've seen, heckled with "shame on you" shouted at him, and the local Labour MP Sarah Sackman was also heckled, and she was sworn at by the crowds. I asked her whether she heard that anger, and she said that she did and that she understood it, and she also said that the government understood that anger too. The Prime Minister saying that he will be coming to Golders Green as soon as possible, and he told the Commons today that he is determined to deal with these offences, the like of which we have seen too much recently. And as we speak, we are just a stone's throw away from that firebombing of those 4 Jewish ambulances last month. We are very close to the Jewish Memorial Wall, which was the subject of an attempted arson attack on Monday. There have been numerous anti-Semitic attacks in London, and the Jewish people here in Golders Green say they just don't feel safe on the streets. And this latest tragic attack, where those 2 Jewish men were stabbed, is the latest manifestation of that. We understand from police that the 2 men, who are 34 and 76, are in a stable condition in hospital tonight.
Olivia, thank you very much indeed. We're just getting news now. This is being reported by the Royce News Agency, quoting the UK Metropolitan Police, that the alleged attacker is a 45-year-old man who has been arrested in London, is a British national born in Somalia. So aged 45, British national born in Somalia. And Adam, interesting that they've decided to release that information so quickly. Clearly a lot of criticism after the Southport attacks, in which Axel Rudikabana was not identified by police. This is presumably a change in policy, isn't it?
Well, that's right. And the purpose is to stop online speculation. I mean, just looking at the front pages of the paper, there is a picture of someone who looks quite similar to the man in the videos, but just identified on the front of the Telegraph as a man who was seen carrying a knife. So everyone is obviously careful for legal reasons, but the police, as you say, after the killing of the 3 little girls, did review their policy, and it appears to have been quite successful. Of course, we also had the case of the woman claiming she'd been raped, and a lot of speculation about what had happened, and yet police say in the end there was not an incident.
OK. Jenny, we heard in Lisa Holland's report Jewish people saying they simply don't feel safe on the streets of London. We've seen it elsewhere in other cities as well. You know, what is happening, do you think? Is it getting worse? What is driving the recent attacks that we've seen, including the attacks on the ambulances and synagogues as well in London?
I'm Jewish.
Yeah.
I'm not visibly Jewish. I'm not connected with Jewish causes and Jewish organisations. But over the past 2 or 3 years, I have got the most absurd amount of abuse online. Every time I do this programme, I've been doing this programme I've been on Sky in the evenings for a long time. Something has changed over the past 2 or 3 years. There is the normalisation of anti-Semitism online. It's OK to say certain things about Jewish people or to post cartoons of the Third Reich underneath, my posts. Those things are totally normal. There's also no point in complaining about them because they don't get taken down. So I think what has happened here is people don't have sympathy for Jews in the way they do for other minority groups. As you see in that report, there are Jewish security firms that go and look out for Jews. There was those Jewish ambulances that were attacked last month. Jewish people are quite well equipped to look after themselves to an extent, which means that they don't get the same sympathy. But we're living in an age where Kanye West can be invited to headline for 3 nights, and Jewish people are told that we all just need to learn to be a little bit more accepting of his apologies. Something has fundamentally changed, and this idea that the police aren't doing enough, I think actually, in terms of actual physical security, a lot is happening. Jewish people don't want to live behind barricades, or people don't want to have armed security guards or police outside Jewish schools or outside synagogues. What we want is for it to not be OK to say this stuff. And until the government has the courage to take on tech companies and say, you have to absolutely stamp this out, then these kinds of ideas are going to spread. This is now the water in which we are all swimming. I have seen it change in this country. As somebody who is not a kind of a vocally Jewish person, it's not a large part of my identity, but that part of my identity is singled out by other people because of my name and the way that I look. It's pure racism. And we need to have zero tolerance for it, or any kind of banter, any kind of jokes. And I think, actually, this does come down to the government not having any control over what goes online and not having the guts to stand up to tech companies and say you need to regulate properly. Yeah.
There is another factor, of course, which is, you say this has happened over the last 2 or 3 years, and I think no one would dispute that. And, of course, what happened 3 years ago, October the 7th, and the massacre of Jewish people, followed by the war or the assault on Gaza. Now, what we saw in those protests with Richard Tice of Reform UK and others leading it was they were protesting against anti-Zionism, amongst other things. Anti-Zionism has become something that, people talk about quite openly, which means the state of Israel should not exist, and it's not deemed to be a crime. Similarly, those chants of from the river to the sea, are things which have been accepted in riots, although the government's changed its policy. And there's no doubt about it that, particularly on the left, and this, of course, goes from Labour into the Green Party, support for Palestine very easily tips into anti-Semitism, anti-Semitism climate. And then, on top of that, you have a real hesitance about any criticism of Muslim or Islam within the Labour Party, although a minority of people associated with that are also associated on occasions with the anti-Semitism. So, you can see why people were shouting at the MP and the Metropolitan Police, because there has been a lot of political delicacy around this.
Jenny, hold that thought. I just want to hear from the politicians. They've been very active on this, as you might imagine. This is how the Prime Minister and, in fact, the Leader of the Opposition reacted to today's attack.
We do have to recognise the levels of anxiety and concern there are, that I know about, in terms of the Jewish community feeling very much exposed and vulnerable, feeling they've got to hide their identity, sometimes in the health service, sometimes at school, on the streets where they live. And it's our job to make sure that they feel safe and secure.
This is a national emergency. I cannot say that enough. This is a national emergency. The communities where there are large numbers of Jews need increased police presence, but the Community Security Trust is one organisation that does get funding. I think Shomrim too as well. They in particular focus on the Orthodox community who are visibly Jewish. The government has said that they want to do more. That's one small thing that they could do. This is what has been happening so far has not been enough.
Cayman Badenoch speaking there from Golders Green. John Craig has joined us, but Jenny, I interrupted you. You wanted to say one thing.
I wanted to say that conflating being pro-Israel and being Jewish is a mistake, and it's racist because being Jewish is an ethnic category. It's also a religion, it's a culture. There is a Jewish state. There are a lot of Jewish people who have never been to Israel and are not sympathetic with the policies and find it offensive to suggest that they're going to agree with a certain kind of politics because of their ethnicity. And I think that's the problem here, that attacking people in Golders Green, believing that there's any kind of political point to be made, would be, you know, as ridiculous as attacking a Muslim person in any other country and claiming it's got something to do with helping Hamas or the fight against Hamas. It's racist.
John, many interventions from politicians, a Cobra meeting as well. You know, lots being seen to do something, but actually the question is how to make the Jewish community feel safe on the streets of the UK.
Well, what the Prime Minister said following that Cobra meeting, and it was a pretty hastily arranged one, actually. It took place at 5 o'clock. He talked about enhanced funding for protecting Jewish communities. He said there is enhanced funding already in place, but he said we need to increase that. Kemi Badenoch talked about a stronger police presence. The Prime Minister also talked about measures, what he called deal with malign state actors. He did also say that tomorrow he's having a meeting with the criminal justice agencies. Just on what you've just been discussing, I mean, I wonder whether Labour perhaps is always looking over its shoulder at the threat from independent pro-Gaza opponents, including the Green Party. And, of course, we saw quite a few independent pro-Gaza MPs elected at the last election. Now, Shabana Mahmood said it was abhorrent to suggest that Labour perhaps wasn't tough enough protecting people because of that fear. But she was asked in an interview this afternoon, this was just after the police had announced that it is being treated as a terrorist incident. Shabana Mahmood was asked in an interview, why is it seems the Jewish community are clearly less safe than their neighbours? This was her reply.
An attack on our Jewish community is an attack on us all, and we take the safety of our Jewish community very seriously. The government has already been taking action on security, on making sure that our synagogues, our community centres, our Jewish schools are well protected. There has been an enhanced police presence that will continue, and we will strain every sinew to keep all of our Jewish community safe.
The Home Secretary there. Just to update you on the news of the 45-year-old arrested. We'd earlier said that the Met is suggesting they are a British national born in Somalia. The latest is that counter-terrorism police are investigating the Golders Green stabbing, are now searching an address in southeast London after it was reported the suspect had been involved in a prior altercation with another person. So clearly that investigation continues. They will want to know whatever motivated this as well, which is amongst the things we're talking about. John, back to the Shabana Mahmood.
I was going to say, they're not saying when that altercation happened, whether it was earlier today or a few weeks ago or whatever. Yes, Shabana Mahmood, I don't think she's been to Golders Green yet. I know she's planning to, and I think she'll probably go with the Prime Minister. I mean, this is yet another problem for the Home Secretary to deal with, and it keeps happening. What struck me this afternoon was it was raised just after Prime Minister's questions by the MP for Hornsey and Friam Barnet. That is Catherine West. One of the things she said was, I'm very worried about this repeated violence against the Jewish community. And I think that's what has alarmed quite a lot of politicians, the fact that it keeps happening.
Well, let's bring in the Jewish news. Jews bleed, cue the clichés. Quoting on the front page, we stand with the Jewish community. This is not who we are as a country. An attack on one of us is an attack on all of us. You know, you can see the words there. Bull.
BS bingo.
BS bingo, that's a better way of saying it. We must choose unity at a time like this. The point being is, it's all very well saying this all out loud, but what actually is being done and how to stem this?
Well, one of the interesting things is the very quick designation of this as a terrorist incident, which does have implications for criminal justice and how the police can look into this case, because
gives them more powers.
Exactly, and you know, it looks like a lone wolf, self-motivating person, and it has to be said the pictures of the suspects are all over the tabloid newspapers. Not often you get the Sun and the Daily Mirror and the Star more or less all pointing in the same direction, but the designation of this as a terrorist incident, it makes one wonder whether possibly a vulnerable person, and we've been told this person had mental health problems, whether someone is seeking out fairly low-level people and encouraging them to do this, whether they're actually being motivated by Iranian or other agents. And that, of course, was the suspicion, too, about the burning of the ambulances.
And the Daily Telegraph is saying that an Iran-linked group is claiming responsibility for this attack as well. Well, they would, you know. And whether or not they are responsible, who knows?
Yeah, just after the police announcement by, it was the Assistant Commissioner Lawrence Taylor, who was at that Cobra meeting, the Home Secretary was asked, is there an Iran link here? And she wouldn't say or didn't know at that point.
There'll be much they still don't know. What we do know is that the arrested person is age 45, a British national of Somalian descent. Counter-terror police are currently searching an address in south-east London after reports the suspect had been involved in a prior altercation with another person. No date on when that alleged altercation was. Obviously, clearly, investigations are at an early stage. You've all jumping ahead, quoting the newspapers. We'll take a full look at them, of course, at 10:30. John, thank you as well for coming in. Now, King Charles was said to be deeply concerned about the incident in Golders Green today. That came from the palace while he was in the United States on day 3 of his visit. He and the Queen have already been treated to a state dinner and a tour of the White House beehives. But on today's agenda was a more sombre affair. The King and Queen visited the 9/11 memorial to pay their respects to the victims. Well, Charles and Camilla laid flowers to honour the victims of the 2001 terror attack. His Majesty stood in silence by the reflecting pools before meeting grieving families and first responders. It is the 25th anniversary of the attack later this year. Well, let us bring in our US correspondent, James Matthews, who is in New York. Certainly a poignant moment in what is a very full day for the King and Queen, but raising concerns possibly amongst the British entourage are comments made by Donald Trump about the Iran war, James.
Yeah, hi, Anna. I think that's right. Yeah, I think they would have been chewing their knuckles in Buckingham Palace when Donald Trump stood up last night at the state dinner and revealed some of the content of the private conversation between the President and King. When Donald met Charles, he said, Charles agrees with me. We're never going to let Iran have a nuclear weapon. Now, clearly he has betrayed the trust of his visiting guest in all of this. I mean, as embarrassing as that might be for some, I think it would have been a whole lot more embarrassing had Charles backed the idea of an Iranian nuclear weapon. That would have been the bigger story. I think Buckingham Palace and the King himself will get over it. But, you know, with the President, perhaps a lack of self-awareness, not for the first time. Certainly he found it irresistible to invoke the thoughts of the King at a time when his position and his politics on Iran need to be endorsed, need to be buttressed. He has spoken about having all the cards. Clearly he chose this as a moment to play his king. And you know, Anna, it was only a few hours after that state dinner, 4 a.m. in the morning, actually, that he posted on Truth Social an AI-created image of himself, Donald Trump, carrying a weapon with explosions going off in the background, saying, no more Mr. Nice Guy. Iran doesn't know how to negotiate a non-nuclear deal. So, you know, that appears to carry a military threat. Donald Trump, not for the first time, constructing the politics of crisis in a comic strip. The difficulty, of course, is we don't know how this particular story ends. Right now, it remains stalled, but despite the President's performative acts and speeches of the past 24 hours.
The King is fantastic. We spent a lot of time together. We had a lot of talk. We talked about this also. And he loves his country, and he's a great king, and he's a great friend of mine. And I think if he were doing that, if that were up to him, he would have probably helped us with Iran.
There you go. Not perhaps the highlight, Anna, of the King and Queen's trip so far, but I think the resounding view is that it has gone well. Yesterday he gave that forceful, robust speech in Congress, skewered Donald Trump, actually, without the president feeling the pain. Today it's been more sombre, certainly, at the site of the World Trade Center, and good-humoured when he went to Harlem and met some of the locals there, with whom he was a big hit. I was there, saw the smiling faces, the big cheers, you know, very much like the royal visit that the royals would want. Good vibes all round.
Yes, and more to come a bit later on. James, thank you very much indeed. These private conversations are supposed to stay private, aren't they? Donald Trump has said the King would have probably helped the US in its military offensive against Iran, and in the State dinner last night said, you know, the King agrees with me that they shouldn't have nuclear arsenal.
With all due respect, I think this is a complete storm in a teacup. I mean, the British government...
Boston teacup, Adam.
Yeah. I mean, the British government have already put out a statement saying it's their long-standing policy that Iran should not acquire a nuclear weapon. That's why we were party to the JCPOA. And in fact, in principle, we're permanent members of the Security Council, the P5, which is built around opposing nuclear proliferation. So I think what we're probably seeing is the King in conversation being quite subtle, making that point, which is not controversial, and Donald Trump perhaps a little bit starstruck, choosing to make his own inferences from it. And I can't see this causing any problems.
I would say that Donald Trump hears what he wants to hear, and he wanted to hear that little nugget from the King. And what he didn't hear was all the stuff. The very clever, well-pitched speech in Congress went completely over his head, all the things that were criticisms.
I'm not sure the mentions of Kennedy went over his head, but anyway.
No, but there's businesses about, you know, you have a constitutional monarch talking about checks and balances and getting a standing ovation. Donald Trump didn't notice that because he hears what he wants to hear. Of course, he doesn't care about protocol. You know, he's irreverent. But I think, you know, I was saying this before we came on. At the beginning of the week, everyone was saying if this royal visit can pass without a gaffe, then it's a success. And it's actually done a lot better than that. He didn't write the speech, but his delivery and his tone was perfect, very well pitched, and he managed to really make some very significant points without alienating anyone.
I mean,
by the bell, I think, but yeah.
Yeah, making a lot of points about differences with Donald Trump's policy while arguing that his views were entirely consistent with the US-UK special relationship. I mean, it really was an absolute masterclass, almost in taking the mickey, as we were hearing there, without Donald Trump feeling the pain. He's very happy to have been associated with him. So I mean, it's real hats off. And frankly, I think it's worked on two levels. Donald Trump loves the flattery of the King, fellow head of state, paying him all this respect. I think the British public are quite enjoying the mickey taking, if you like, or the implicit. It's not quite a Love Actually moment, but it's quite amusing.
And if you're wondering, this is AI generated. No more Mr. Nice Guy. We'll be talking about that a bit later on, about Iran, about oil prices going up and UK borrowing going up as well, and the impact on all of us. But no more Mr. Nice Guy, as posted by the President. Next up, though, we will be taking a first look at what is making the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers.
I urge you not to look away. If Hamas hands the hostages over, they will end this conflict. The world has been watching. Good to see you again. How are you? Did she say how he was?
The conditions are awful.
The jets were ordered to come back. Historic day here today. How will you respond if India does launch airstrikes?
They'll be all out to war.
I'm just going to put some body armor on. I'm Yalda Hakim.
Well, it's time now to see what is making the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers. So let's go to The Guardian to start with. It leads with the stabbing of 2 Jewish men in North London, which police have described as a terrorist attack. The Eye says further casualties were avoided thanks to interventions from the police and members of the public. The Telegraph quotes the boss of a leading anti-Semitism campaign group who says hatred of Jews in the UK is out of control. The Daily Mirror also leads on the attack, calling it sickening, as the chief rabbi warns visibly Jewish people are not safe. On the front of the Daily Star, a chilling photo shows the suspect holding a knife. According to The Sun, witnesses described hate in his eyes as the attacker, or the alleged attacker rather, lunged at the victims. Meantime, the Financial Times reports that the price of Brent crude oil is now just under $120 a barrel, its highest level since the Iran war began. And the Metro speaks to the mother of Theo Kempthorne, who died at the age of 8, but whose donated organs helped save the lives of 4 other people. So let us talk more then with Adam Bolton and Jenny Kleeman. Not surprisingly, Jenny, many, if not most of the newspapers leading on what we saw in Golders Green in North London.
Yes, and focusing on the fact that this was designated a terrorist incident very quickly. The Telegraph has that extra bit of information that an Iran-linked group claims responsibility for the attack. This idea that, you know, visibly identifiable Jews are not safe in the UK. What is a visibly identifiable Jew? Is it somebody wearing a kippah? Is it somebody dressed as an Orthodox Jew? Is it someone like me who never goes to synagogue, has nothing to do with anything pro-Israel, but has a surname that people could work out is Jewish and might have a face that people think is Jewish? That is the issue here, is that we have allowed a certain kind of normalisation of anti-Semitic views to be kind of bunched in with anti-Israel, anti-Netanyahu views, and there has been very little will to address it in the same way as any other kind of racism. And if you go online, you will see just how completely normalised all of this is. And, you know, there's the Cobra meeting today had John Craig before saying, you know, there's going to be more money for security. Jewish people don't want to be kept behind bars and armed. I remember being a kid going past my local synagogue and asking my mother why there were men with walkie-talkies around the synagogue. And my mother, the first time ever being explained to me, oh, because some people want to hurt Jewish people, and just being really shocked, thinking, oh, gosh, people want to hurt us. You know, Jewish people don't want to live in a community where the way that they can be safe is by being kept in secure places and surrounded by guards. They want it to be unacceptable for people to hate Jewish people. And there isn't enough of that. And I think this entire approach of we need to do more in terms of security, we need to have the guts to tackle this at the root and say that we are not going to accept anti-Semitic speech online.
Adam, I mean, we're looking at the Daily Telegraph that you quoted there, you know, Jew hate out of control in the UK, suggesting that Israel has said this after 2 Jewish men were stabbed. We've had a series, haven't we, from the ambulances, the synagogues attacked, the British Prime Minister. Again, let's be frank, this is not an isolated incident. I know firsthand the anxiety that this is causing in the community and concern.
But, I mean, we've also got the newspapers on the front page identifying a man who they believe is suspect. And as you say, the police have revealed that this man was born in Sudan, although he's now...
Somalia.
Yeah. And although he's now a British citizen. And, you know, what we're seeing is that this all took place absolutely in broad daylight, that there were people there with phones, there were pictures, security cameras of what went on, and how really very quickly he was dealt with. He was tasered and went to the floor, and you were pointing out that the police appeared to kick him at times. So that, you know, this is an incident, but it is absolutely true that there's an upsurge of anti-Jewish incidents, but we should remember this sort of thing is not exclusive. I mean, the Southport killings, they weren't Jewish children, but they, you know, they were stabbed, and frankly, the perpetrator there seemed a lot more prepared to do his dreadful work and damage to people than this man who we see in the videos running along, sort of almost looking for someone that he can attack.
But this is like this is the fourth, I think it might be the sixth attack in a month. If you look at North London, there's a Harrow Synagogue, Hendon Charity, Finchley Synagogue. There were the Jewish ambulances in Golders Green. Yeah. This is in the last month. So this is not some one-off. It's not like Southport, where there is an extremely dangerous, we hope, very rare psychopath intent on hurting whoever he can. This is part of a pattern. And it is because people feel that that it's legitimate to have this grievance against people who are Jewish.
Yes, I mean, as you said, we do not know if this is, you know, a mental health issue, whether it is anger, you know, towards the Netanyahu government, for example, whether it is, you know, an Iranian proxy, you know, thugs for hire attack, although some people have pointed out that actually the modus operandi here, a knife attack, is not what we've seen before. The other incidents involve arson or attempted arson. One where a drone was flown near an Israeli embassy, although it has been claimed, as you suggested, that, you know, an Iranian group has claimed, or an Iranian-linked group has claimed responsibility for it. So we don't yet know what the motivation for this alleged attack was. As we now say, with the man arrested. In the newspapers as well, again, a picture, the Express suggesting this is an attack on Britain itself. The Sun, as you can see there, how many more? These attacks are an attack on Britain itself, which is really the mood music for many people in the Jewish community saying that as well.
Yes, of course. And what kind of country are we? We are a tolerant country where we don't accept any attacks on anyone, but least of all, there should not be any groups that are legitimate targets. And, you know, after the first attack, there should be a resolve to stamp this out at the root.
Yeah. Daily Mail as well. Anti-Semitism is out of control in the UK, warns Israel. Labour are told empty words of condemnation are not enough, Adam.
Yeah, these are comments which have come in from the Israeli foreign minister, and I think we've also had Mr Netanyahu weighing in on this subject as well, the Israeli prime minister. And that, if you like, is the most serious issue is Keir Starmer describing anti-Semitism as a national emergency. I mean, all I can say about this is that if you look across the range of the newspapers, they are all on the same page, identifying this as a national crisis and something which has to be dealt with.
Adam, we noticed a picture there of Angela Rayner as well. The speculation now is that there might be a reshuffle after the May elections. Now, I said to you, oh, is the Mail out to get her? And you suggested, you know, that the Mail might want to install her and then you know, bring her down. Is that the plan here, or what's the strategy?
There is some suggestion. Look, the situation in British politics at the moment, and there's a lot inside the newspapers, not necessarily on the front page, is there is a perception that we're approaching a crisis point with these local elections and Scottish and Welsh Assembly elections on May the 7th that are likely to go very badly for Labour. Now, if you read the Times tomorrow, you'll see there's a long piece by Jerry Scott basically saying people are putting themselves into position to challenge the Prime Minister. Angela Rayner is one of them, and Wes Streeting is named as another. Andy Burnham is not able, because he's not an MP, to challenge, but he's also been talking to Angela Rayner and saying that the Labour government needs a change of direction. So clearly there are, I don't know what you want to call them, but there are a lot of people circling to be there if Keir Starmer falls. Alternatively, there is a theory that Keir Starmer, although this has been denied by Number 10, will react to a bad result on May the 7th, if it is a bad result, by trying to reshuffle his cabinet. and suggestions there that he's already had talks with Angela Rayner saying, you know, what's your price for coming back in? She wants to get rid of Shabana Mahmood. Suggestions that two rather inoffensive cabinet ministers, Peter Kyle and Liz Kendall, who of course are seen as being sort of neo-Blairite, that they might be moved out to make way for more left-wing people like Lucy Powell. I mean, basically what I'm saying to everyone is the days after May the 7th, you know, the knives are going to be out in the Labour Party. Well, who knows how it's going to end up?
Indeed so, and even Kemi Badenoch suggesting that the Chancellor is toast today. It is the end of the formal parliamentary session, of course, as well. Let's listen to Beth Rigby.
Could Angela Rayner be back in government just days after those local elections? Because less than 2 weeks ago, it looked like a cabinet reshuffle was nailed on and Angela Rayner could be back. But the Mandelson crisis has put the cat amongst the pigeons in more ways than one. Because now Keir Starmer's top team's divided over whether a cabinet reshuffle after the elections is A, a good idea, or B, even possible given the political predicament he's in. So what on earth is actually going on behind the scenes? On the one hand, you've got the Prime Minister's chief whip, Jonathan Reynolds, and his political director, Amy Richards, pushing for a reshuffle of the top team because they want to put some of the soft left in Labour back into the top team. Think of your Lou Haigs, your Angela Rayners, your Lucy Powells. And why do they want to do that? Well, they want to placate some of those Labour MPs who are casting around for a different sort of leader to Keir Starmer that comes from the left. It is, of course, a one-in, one-out system, and the talk around Westminster is that the potential casualties to any reshuffle will be those on the right of the Labour Party. Think of these two, Liz Kendall and Peter Kyle. And on the other side of the split, arguing against a reshuffle at the top of number 10, you've got Darren Jones, the Chief Secretary to the Prime Minister, and his acting Chief of Staff, Vidya Alaxon. They're trying to press pause on any reshuffle, and you can see why. It's such a febrile time, and the Prime Minister's in such a perilous position. Kemi Badenoch summed it all up at Prime Minister's Questions.
He's lost a Deputy Prime Minister, 2 Chiefs of Staff, 2 Cabinet Secretaries, the support of his backbenchers and all his credibility. The fact is the Prime Minister was reduced to whipping his MPs to save him and pleading with a tax dodger to rejoin his Cabinet. How much longer do we all have to put up with his shambles?
And beyond the current woes, Labour could be facing decimation in the May elections. Some polling suggests they could lose up to 2,000 council seats in England. If that happens, it will be clearly earth-shattering for Labour, and it's really unclear what the fallout will be. And as for Keir Starmer, well, he looked like he just wanted Prime Minister's Questions and this parliamentary session to be over.
I changed my party and I won a general election. More rights at work, more security for renters, lifting 500,000 children out of poverty. That's our mandate, that's our mission, and nothing's going to hold us back.
But that's not really in his control, and while the Prime Minister weighs up whether to reshuffle his top team, his wider party are weighing up whether to reshuffle him.
Yeah, do we reshuffle him or does he reshuffle them? Who knows? Anyway, Andy Burnham, the Telegraph tells us, has once again demanded Labour takes a different course, prompting, they say, fresh speculation that he could seek to oust Sir Keir Starmer after next week's local elections. He, of course, can't because he's not an MP. But anyway, there's the intention. He said that before, mind you, and that is his politics. So, Jenny, your take on all of this?
My take on all of this is that Labour is behaving as if they've already lost and done really badly, which is not going to really motivate people to be like, oh, yeah, I really want to vote for them. And if it is the case that as many as 2,000 council seats are lost, that is going to be catastrophic. Keir Starmer's entire modus operandi seems to be passing the buck. That's what he does. A reshuffle sounds possible. But we know that this has been a pretty terrible year for him. And there has been a sense that everyone is just waiting for May before they really, really stick the knife in, whether or not it's over Mandelson or any of the other catastrophes he's had to deal with this year. So, I would say he has to come up with something in this reshuffle. He has to come up with something on Friday morning that is different from anything else that we have seen before in order to save his skin. And simply saying, "Oh, I don't have the right team around me," just isn't going to work.
It's a bit of agony. It probably won't be Friday morning because
it takes so long.
An awful lot of them are counting into Friday late, and so there have been some reports of a reshuffle on Saturday. Historically, these things have tended to wait until the Monday, Tuesday of the following week. It's going to go on forever. But just to answer your question about Angela Rayner and that picture on the front of the Mail, Angela Rayner is, by definition, a very colourful character, and I think there is a certain sense in some of the conservative newspapers of building her up as a big player because they think that at a later stage they may be able to knock her down. That seems to be... And, she's been a target all along. You remember you had the Michael Ashcroft book about her first bit of purchase. She apparently is waiting for... Seems to be taking an incredibly long time. The Inland Revenue is going to rule on whether she was in the right or the wrong in not paying tax on the flat she bought in Hove. But everyone is saying she expects to be cleared, and at that point there's a suggestion from friends of Angela Rayner that she will make her move. But, it's all...
It's all febrile stuff, isn't it? Yeah. It's been hidden under Sir Ollie Robbins and Lord Mandelson for a while, but it's still all brewing, certainly. Lots more still to come. We will look at more newspapers as well, because the FT, for example, talks about the oil price surge. What has Trump done now? Back in a moment.
I bet right now you often find yourself asking why. Why was a certain decision taken? Why did something happen? Why did they say or do that? I'm Neil Patterson, and it's my job as a journalist to find out why. Just explain why.
It's a difficult one.
Well, I mean, it's massive.
It's a very, very severe situation.
So if you want to make sense of this complicated world, Sky News' new podcast, This Is Why, is your daily fix. One story every day, and we can find out why together. Listen and follow wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Adam Parsons, Sky's Middle East correspondent. We've just entered Gaza. The vista out there is complete destruction. I'll always remember going into Gaza City during the war. All around us was destruction and the sounds of battle. What you see a lot of here are military machines, soldiers, devastation and destruction. What you see very little of are the locals, the Gazans, the people who used to live here, the ghosts of this town. I witnessed the scars of the October the 7th attacks, burnt out homes, bullet holes in walls and bloodstains on the floor.
People were murdered. You have the black flag, you have the yellow flag. People were kidnapped.
Inside this convoy, prisoners released by Israel in exchange for their hostages. The Israelis insist that many of these prisoners are terrorists, but here the Palestinians consider them a blend of freedom fighters and political prisoners. There were tears and there was defiance. This land has been farmed for hundreds of years, but now it's a scene of conflict. Israeli settlers have come to this area to seize land.
They've taken the land that I inherited from my father, and my father inherited from his father.
What would happen if you were took?
Oh, we'll be shot.
This is a place where the past is cherished, but the future is feared. These are the settlers in waiting, keen to start a new life, to annex Gaza for Israel.
The least we can do is just kick them out of our land.
Gaza, which is just 2 miles in that direction, is under attack again. Sky News, get the full story first.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist... Hi, darling.
Beth Rigby, Sky News.
Is being a Sky News journalist. You said to people, I'm not coming back for more, but you have come back for more. Well, let's kick off and make a statement. What can our Prime Minister say to you to not impose tariffs? He's coming out! What more do you need?
we're trying to see as much as we can.
We're in an area that's just been reclaimed.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
People are directly protesting.
The whole neighborhood has rallied around her.
It's been impenetrable to journalists over the last 2 years of war in Sudan.
I've been waiting for this for 2 years. It doesn't feel like a big homecoming.
It was never going to be pretty. War isn't pretty.
Well, we showed it to you briefly earlier. Donald Trump has posted an AI-generated image of himself toting a gun underneath. If we see it in full, it says, "No more Mr. Nice Guy!" exclamation mark. Well, the Pentagon revealed today that its war on Iran has so far cost the US $25 billion. The US Defense Secretary, or Minister of War, as he was saying, Pete Hegseth, defended the war in Iran in his first appearance before Congress since the conflict began.
2 months into a conflict, lest I remind you, and my generation understands how long we were in Iraq, how long we were in Afghanistan, how long we were in Vietnam. 2 months in on an existential fight for the safety of the American people, Iran cannot have a nuclear bomb. We are proud of this undertaking.
There you go, Jenny. Only 2 months in, the Financial Times suggests oil prices have gone up because Trump does not want to lift the blockade on Iran. And actually, in the Times, they suggest, he says, Iran is choking like a stuffed pig.
Oh, my gosh. I mean, you know, we are being expected to swallow some completely ridiculous truths. Pete Hegseth today telling Congress how well the war is going, how all their objectives are being achieved. Donald Trump, a week into the war, saying the war was going to be finished very soon. We are being gaslit and bamboozled by this government. And the same goes for that AI-generated picture with the machine gun. Donald Trump is a master of distraction. He wants us to be talking about that picture. He doesn't want to be talking about $25 billion spent on a war that Americans don't really understand what they're getting for it. And these record oil prices that are going to really, really hurt him at the polls.
Well, yeah, except, I mean, the full quote is, the blockade is somewhat more effective than the bombing. They're choking like a stuffed pig, and it's going to be worse for them. They can't have a nuclear weapon. They want to settle. They don't want me to keep the blockade. I don't want to lift it because I don't want them to have a nuclear weapon. Now, the point about that is that the American strategy, having been, you may remember a few weeks ago, we're going to bomb them, destroy their civilization and all that. America is now deciding that this blockade is working, and the theory is if they can stop Iran getting its oil out, that will hit Iran economically, so that they're saying they'll crack by September. Also, the effect of blockading the oil is that Iran will have to stop some of its drilling because it hasn't got enough capacity to store the oil that's coming out, so it will cause big problems. The problem is that for the United States, as you say, there may be some impact, but the United States is a net oil exporter at the moment. It is less worried on the impact. And the bad news, I'm afraid, is that most of the economic projections is were the blockade to continue to September, we in this country would be terribly severely hit.
Well, already today, 10-year yields, the government borrowing has gone up to 2008, which is the absolute heart of the financial crisis.
And the IMF says we're going to be hit worse than anybody else in the G7.
Quick 10 seconds, Jenny.
I noticed that we're all just now accepting that the war aim is to stop Iran from developing a nuclear weapon, which is one of maybe 8 war aims that were declared at the beginning. The main one was total surrender, regime change, asking for an uprising.
Jenny, the music's playing. Run out of show. But luckily, we've got another hour to go. See you in a moment.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter? Perfect. Let's bring you some breaking news. Being a Sky News presenter. I began by asking...
Thank you so much.
...trusting us to tell her story. The battle for number 10. Sky News has been given exclusive access. Let me give you a sneak peek. It was the day those present would never forget. Why did you decide to open up and tell your story?
I urge you not to look away. If Hamas hands the hostages over, they will end this conflict. The world has been watching. Good to see you again. How are you? Did she say how he was?
The conditions are awful.
The jets were ordered to come back. Historic day here today. How will you respond if India does launch airstrikes?
They'll be allowed to warn.
I'm just going to put some body armor on. I'm Yalda Hakim.
Tonight on The Wrap, anti-Jewish terror on the streets of London.
It's our job to make sure that they feel safe and secure. It's our job to make sure that we absolutely deal with the roots of anti-Semitism and extremism.
A community under attack vented its fury today at the police and a government that many believe is failing to protect them. Resign and shame on you, they chanted, after 2 Jewish men were stabbed.
What we've heard.
Tonight we'll ask if Keir Starmer's government is doing enough to keep Jewish people safe. Plus, the King in New York, Charles, says he is deeply concerned about the Golders Green attack as he honours the victims of 9/11. And no more Mr. Nice Guy. A gun-toting Donald Trump posts an AI image of himself and says the King would have supported his war. But with no end in sight, oil prices surged to their highest since the conflict began. Well, we discuss today's biggest stories with the journalist and broadcaster, Jenny Kleeman, and the political commentator, Adam Bolton, plus a first look at the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers. Well, hello and good evening to you, and welcome both to Jenny and Adam. So the Jewish community reeling tonight from another anti-Semitic attack. Adam, Jenny, here we are once again.
Yes, it is completely shocking and totally not surprising. And Jewish people don't want extra gunmen, extra policemen outside their synagogues and schools. What they want is for it to be totally unacceptable, to single them out, and for anti-Semitism to be stamped out. And there seems to be a lack of will to do that. It's all very well pouring money into security. We actually need a culture change.
Yeah, interesting hearing the Prime Minister there saying it's his responsibility to sort out anti-Semitism. One does wonder what he's going to do in order to achieve that.
Well, in the last hour, the police have released new details. They say that the suspect arrested is a 45-year-old British man who was born in Somalia. Officers are currently searching an address too in southeast London in relation to a separate incident, we are told, that was reported to police earlier today. Well, the suspect is believed to be the same individual arrested in Golders Green. Let's get more then from Lisa Holland, who reports from North London.
Once again, the Jewish community is reeling after yet another attack on the streets of Britain. This video shows the start of a terrifying few minutes in North London as the attacker, running, is seen lunging towards the man who shouts for help. Then he finds his second victim at a bus stop, the victim's clothing identifying him as a member of the Jewish community. Jewish security volunteers, passers-by,
Down on the ground! Down on the ground! Step back!
and the police detain and pin down the suspect after he'd stabbed the two men, one in their 30s and another in their 70s, leaving them with serious injuries.
Drop the knife! Mate, you're under arrest on suspicion of attempted murder!
And given the James Marlowe watched events unfold in front of where he lives and filmed as the suspect was taken away by ambulance.
I saw the attacker when I came out of the building on the ground, face down, being treated by the Jewish paramedics called Hatzalah, and they were treating him for a good 15 or 20 minutes. Police were around, helicopters in the sky, more residents coming out because they could hear a lot of commotion.
What's the reaction from people in the community that there's been another incident?
A lot of people around here have been expecting that. They hope it won't come and they get on with their daily lives, picking up their kids from school, work and everything else and shopping, but they've been expecting it.
This is the latest incident targeting the Jewish community and comes just weeks after 4 ambulances run by Jewish volunteers were set on fire in an arson attack in the same part of North London.
We were so shocked and so saddened, but not surprised. We have been asking, God forbid, where will the next incident be? When will it be? Today we found out the answer, but this cannot continue.
Shame on you!
The Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police and the local MP were heckled at the scene. There's frustration amongst those who believe not enough police protection is provided for them.
Let me be clear, we've seen a rise in racist and anti-Semitic hate crime. And whilst I can't comment on live investigations, we know that some individuals are being encouraged, persuaded or paid to commit acts of violence on behalf of foreign organisations and hostile states. If you act out of hatred, racism or anti-Semitism, we will come after you and you will face the consequences.
What we've heard... Shame on you! Shame on you!
An Iran-aligned group said it was responsible for the stabbings, though no evidence has been provided to back that up. It means their unsubstantiated claim could just be opportunistic. People we spoke to after the incident seemed horrified, yet resilient. What does everybody feel?
That it's not safety anymore to walk on the street.
This is a community which says it is continuously looking over its shoulder, fearful of those who see them as their enemies. Lisa Holland, Sky News, North London.
Well, our chief political correspondent, John Craig, has just joined us. I know you spoke to a number of politicians today. Many of them have been speaking. But the point that you raised earlier, which is this is just a number of attacks in the last 5 weeks. Let's just have a quick glance at the timeline, shall we, of those attacks on Jewish communities. So 4 You'll remember this one. 4 Jewish community ambulances were torched in Golders Green in the early hours of March the 23rd. Then on the 15th of April, attempted arson attacks carried out at Finchley Reformed Synagogue in northwest London. April the 18th, items found near the Israeli embassy in central London. Police closing off Kensington Gardens as they investigated that threat. Same day, an attempted arson attack in northwest London on a building that formerly belonged to Jewish Futures, a charity for Jewish educational brands. Following day, April the 19th, an attempted arson attack carried out at Kenton United Synagogue in Harrow. Today, 2 people stabbed in Golders Green in north-west London. And no wonder, therefore, Jenny, as we heard in Lisa Holland's report, you know, somebody saying they do not feel safe now on the streets.
Absolutely. And, you know, if you look at the attacks over the past 5 weeks, they have generally been against property. Things have been firebombed or, you know, there have been attacks on synagogues, but not attacks directly on people. I mean, Jewish people are a large group. There's quite a lot of diversity within the Jewish community in the UK. And as I often say, being Jewish is an ethnic category, it is a culture, it is a religion. And for some people, it's affinity with Israel, but not all Jews at all. So there is some diversity in this. Some people don't feel safe and haven't felt safe for years and feel very unsafe because of the marches. I'm a Londoner. I've always felt safe in London. But I have to explain to my daughter, my little daughter who's 8 years old, who says to me when the radio's on and she says to me, "Oh, Mummy, will people be able to tell that I'm Jewish?" What do I say to my daughter when you've got, you know, statements saying people who are visibly Jewish aren't safe? What is being visibly Jewish? It is really, really frightening, and the sheer number of attacks just suggests that this is just becoming normalised. And I do think there is a question of security, but we have to do more to absolutely clamp down on any anti-Semitic chatter online.
Well, John will explain what the politicians have been saying in just a moment. But, Adam, let's just see the Jewish news, first of all, which really condemns the platitudes that we have heard from politicians for a long time now. If you look at it, this is not who we are as a country. We stand with the Jewish community. An attack on one of us is an attack on all of us. You know, hate has no place in British society, etc. BS bingo, they say, Jews bleed, cue the cliches.
Yeah, that is the problem, and you know, it's right that although Jenny says, you know, the Jewish community is large and disparate, I mean, it is important to remember that probably in total the number of Jewish people in this country is less than 1% of the population. I mean, you know, a few 100,000, and therefore, you know, the level of targeting seems all the more appalling, frankly.
Yeah. Well, John, we had a hastily convened Cobra meeting. We have huge numbers of politicians speaking out. What are they saying? What can be done?
Well, the Prime Minister's talking about, as he put it, enhancing funding, increasing funding to protect the Jewish community.
Don't start Jenny on that, by the way. But
it makes me very angry.
But the point is that...
I'm only reporting what the Prime Minister said. I'm not expressing a view. He went on to say he's got a meeting tomorrow with the criminal justice agencies. On behalf of the broadcasters, I spoke to the Home Secretary, who was talking about... I mean, she rejected the idea that the Labour Party was not exactly soft on tackling anti-Semitism because of the threat from pro-Gaza candidates in elections. So that was abhorrent, she said. But I did say to her, you know, why is it the Jewish community in this country clearly feel less safe than their neighbours? This was her reply.
An attack on our Jewish community is an attack on us all, and we take the safety of our Jewish community very seriously. The government has already been taking action on security, on making sure that our synagogues, our community centres, our Jewish schools are well protected. There has been an enhanced police presence that will continue, and we will strain every sinew to keep all of our Jewish community safe. John?
Well, that was the Home Secretary, obviously, who's got some real tough problems to sort there. I mean, the Cobra meeting, obviously, was, oh, my goodness, how are we going to tackle this? Because they had the police there, Mark Rowley, who we saw get a very rough ride up in Golders Green. The officer who made the announcement today about it being called a terrorist incident, that's Assistant Commissioner Lawrence Taylor. He's a key figure in all this. He's Assistant Commissioner Special Operations is his title. So the Met's got a problem on their hands here. And the politicians, of course. There is a report tonight that one of the victims, who was one of the two people stabbed, is saying, oh, it's the government's fault. I hold the government responsible.
Let's hear from Keir Starmer then, shall we?
We do have to recognise the levels of anxiety and concern there are that I know about in terms of the Jewish community feeling very much exposed and vulnerable, feeling they've got to hide their identity, sometimes in the health service, sometimes at school, on the streets where they live. And it's our job to make sure that they feel safe and secure.
This is a national emergency. I cannot say that enough. This is a national emergency. The communities where there are large numbers of Jews need increased police presence, but the Community Security Trust is one organisation that does get funding. I think Shomrim too as well. They in particular focus on the Orthodox community who are visibly Jewish. The government has said that they want to do more. That's one small thing that they could do. This is what has been happening so far has not been enough.
Yeah, there was a small protest as well. People like Richard Tice were down there. I think the Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp also around too. But certainly some Jewish people like Dov Foreman, whose grandmother was an Auschwitz survivor, moved to this country to escape, you know, the hatred of Jewish people, said what's happened, or what we're seeing over the last weeks, is a direct consequence of calls for globalising the Intifada to go unchecked, those so-called hate marches, as we heard so much about. You know, and this concern that the left-wing in British politics, Adam, is historically pro-Palestinian and therefore not enough is done about it.
Yes, indeed. We're seeing pictures there of the demonstration, which was joined by Richard Tice of Reform UK, saying that anti-Zionism, that is opposition to the existence of the Jewish state of Israel, is terrorism. And, you know, there has been pressure for the government to tighten up its rules on hate speech and hate crime as it relates to Israel. I think it's worth pointing out as well that the police have moved very quickly, first of all, identifying this man, but also declaring this as a terrorist incident. And it, you know, it does raise questions as to whether vulnerable people, and we're being told this man had mental health problems, are actually being targeted and encouraged by, you know, if you like, more sinister forces to go out and commit these crimes, because they seem to be, I mean, they're horrific, but they're kind of low level. They're, you know, they're not. They're not
sophisticated.
Sophisticated, you know.
I mean, in this case, we clearly do not know.
We do not know.
But the point is, the suspicion.
But the point is, if they're designating it terrorism, they are suggesting some kind of politically motivated organisation behind these events.
Final thought, John?
Well, following on from what Adam says, I mean, there's all sorts of stuff on the internet, isn't there, which clearly these sort of people, whenever we read about these sort of people, they appear in court, it's always because they've read all sorts of stuff on the internet, which the government seems powerless to do anything about. And we've heard some politicians today talk about, come on, tech companies, you really got to do something about this, and they don't seem to do anything about it.
Because as Jenny was saying, if you say something anti-Semitic, you generate clicks, and that
you make money from, and a lot of the sort of manosphere influencers also happen to be anti-Semitic, because you know that you'll get a reaction if you put something anti-Semitic out there. People make money out of all of this. It's, you know, it's a grift, and there is nothing being done to stop this.
John, thank you for coming in for that. Well, King Charles was said to be deeply concerned about the incident in Golders Green today. That came from the palace while he was, of course, in the United States on day 3 of his visit. He and the Queen have already been treated to a state dinner and a tour of the White House beehives and the White House. But on today's agenda was a more sombre affair. Our royal correspondent, Laura Bonduck, has this report now from New York.
There will be plenty to reflect on after this state visit, not least the volatile politics of Washington. But at the National Memorial to September the 11th in New York, a moment to remember and commemorate. This year marks the 25th anniversary of the attacks here, something the King referenced when he diplomatically defended NATO at Congress. Less diplomatic, a second unplanned outburst from Trump.
He's a great king, and he's a great friend of mine,
And I think if he were doing that, if that were up to him, he would have probably helped us with Iran. He would have followed the suggestions we made with respect to Ukraine.
We've heard Trump say worse, but the problem is the king's supposed to be above politics, and it's the second time in 2 days he's spoken out like this. Embarrassing again for the palace, no doubt glad for some distance from DC, with a day here in New York.
I'm going to put it deep into the dirt.
And so to a patch of Harlem going green, growing sustainable farms from disused urban lots. Everything here shared to feed the community, all curious to chat to their visitor.
We just bent down. King Charles. Is your name Mr. King Charles? Mr. Charles, you are really nice.
For the Queen, an event at New York's iconic public library with a pretty iconic guest list. She's not meeting Epstein survivors, but also took time with charities supporting victims of abuse. A big day in the Big Apple before returning to Washington, and a final goodbye to the president and his unpredictable posturing on the king. Laura Bundock, Sky News in New York.
Yes, the 25th anniversary later this year of the 9/11 attacks. The substantive part of this meeting, the 250th anniversary of independence for America from Britain. Do you think it matters that Donald Trump has twice spoken out, almost suggestively revealing what there must have been private conversations about Iran?
Well, he speculated that the king would have supported his actions in Iran. He didn't say the king said he would have supported his actions in Iran. So I think he sort of hears what he wants to hear. As is being pointed out, I think, by Buckingham Palace tonight, it is the established position of successive British governments that they don't want Iran to get a nuclear weapon. So I think the king was...
On that one was fine.
You know,
you're right. I think if he were doing that, if that were up to him, he would have probably helped us with Iran.
And, of course, what he's doing is implicitly drawing a contrast with Sir Keir Starmer, who he's attacked, the person the king calls my prime minister. But what the king has been doing throughout this is stressing what we agree on while actually suggesting that there are differences from, from Donald Trump's position. And I think he's done it incredibly skillfully.
Yes, this is the toast at the state banquet last night, just after the king had presented him with the bell of a submarine which was launched in 1944, HMS Trump. I'm absolutely sure Mr. Trump would have loved that. And Mr.
Some people think there was even an implicit joke, which we won't go into in giving Trump...
No, don't go there. I don't even want to think about that.
But I did, just on 9/11,
yeah.
And we've been talking about terror tonight, worth remembering, I think, that 9/11 was, particularly in the Twin Towers, the single biggest loss of British lives in a terrorist incident.
And your overall assessment of, as we watch those pictures of the laying of flowers at the 9/11 memorial site during this visit to New York, which is not yet over. There's an event right now, actually, for the King's Trust, a showcase of the UK's cultural impact on New York. We'll get those pictures fed to us a bit later on. But Mr. Trump said, I think he's a phenomenal representative for his country. I think the people in the United Kingdom should be proud. I mean, he drew some jokes, some fell flatter last night at the state banquet, some jokes too in Congress, who applauded him, slowed his 20-minute speech down to 28 minutes. Such was the applause. How do you think it has gone down?
I think they will be delighted by how it's gone down. I think the sort of bar was very low of let's just hope there aren't any gaffes and huge embarrassment. But actually, I think, he doesn't write his own speeches, but that speech yesterday to Congress, the tone of it, the delivery of it was pitch perfect. And he was able to make some points that I think will resonate with a lot of British people. I think we feel powerless at the moment. We all are feeling very powerless. And this idea that this extreme loose cannon in Donald Trump is able to say complete untruths about, for example, our participation in conflicts alongside the US in the past, and make all sorts of outrageous claims on what we should and shouldn't be doing. And the idea that you can have a British voice standing there and saying it to Donald Trump's face, things that represent what we feel as a country, is a powerful thing, and they will be really pleased with that. I think, you know, also the idea of this protocol being broken and Donald Trump revealing what was said. This is a man who will tweet "open the effing straight." You know, the idea that we're expecting him to care about decorum and protocol at all is just ridiculous. He doesn't care about any of that. I think it's been good for our country and also good for the royal family, who, let's face it, are having to make a case for themselves constantly now, given everything that has happened with Andrew and with Harry.
I think we should give a little bit more credit to the King himself. I mean, what they're saying at the palace is that the King is very actively involved in preparing his speeches.
It sounded like his voice.
And sort of, we know that he likes writing, you know, in freehand. His thoughts.
What were those notes called? The
spider thing. And I think that, you know, if you listen to the speeches, there are clearly ideas which are his own, you know, like talking about the first president he met was Eisenhower, drawing parallels. I mean,
at the age of 10, wasn't it?
You know, quite bold, drawing parallels with saying, well, my mother was here after we'd had a disagreement over the Middle East.
In 1957,
which was, of course, the Suez Crisis. I'm basically saying, and now I'm here after we've had another disagreement. So, you know, whatever Trump's saying about his position on Iran, as he displayed it, he was simply saying, look, the British government and the Trump administration are in different places on this. I mean, quite subtle stuff.
Yeah. And also that the arc of history is long, and that this relationship will outlast any of these small disputes.
Some fantastic name-dropping from the King, which Trump would have lapped up in every form, would he not? Yes, our coverage of that continues. It is not over yet. Obviously, there's more tomorrow as well, so stay tuned for that. Lots more still to come. We will talk about Donald Trump again, because he's been doubling down on his Iran strategy, warning there will be no more Mr. Nice Guy.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist... Hi, darling.
Beth Rigby, Sky News.
...is being a Sky News journalist. You said to people, I'm not coming back for more, but you have come back for more. Well, let's kick off and make a statement. What can our Prime Minister say to you to not impose tariffs? He's coming out! What more do you need?
We're trying to see as much as we can.
We're in an area that's just been reclaimed.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
People are directly protesting.
The whole neighborhood has rallied around her.
It's been impenetrable to journalists over the last 2 years of war in Sudan.
I've been waiting for this for 2 years. It doesn't feel like a big homecoming.
It was never going to be pretty. War isn't pretty.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter? Perfect. Let's bring you some breaking news. Being a Sky News presenter. I began by asking...
Thank you so much.
...trusting us to tell her story. The battle for number 10. Sky News has been given exclusive access. Let me give you a sneak peek. It was the day those present would never forget. Why did you decide to open up and tell your story?
Adam, hold on a second, we're on. Donald Trump has posted an AI-generated image of himself toting a gun. If you see it in full, it has the caption, "No more Mr. Nice Guy." There it is. Well, the Pentagon revealed today that its war on Iran has cost the US $25 billion so far. Well, let us hear now from the US Defence Secretary, shall we, Pete Hegseth, who has defended the war in Iran in his first appearance before Congress since the conflict began.
2 months into a conflict, lest I remind you, and my generation understands how long we were in Iraq, how long we were in Afghanistan, how long we were in Vietnam. 2 months in on an existential fight for the safety of the American people, Iran cannot have a nuclear bomb. We are proud of this undertaking.
Adam, how do you think the MAGA supporters, the America First lot, will hear Pete Hegseth there suggesting, you know, Vietnam and Afghanistan, we were there a lot longer? I mean, any mention of that sort of shivers through their spines.
Yeah, well, I mean, we know that there's a substantial group of MAGA people who are now against Trump. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly have all come out publicly saying, you know, they thought no more wars was the most appealing thing about Trump, no more foreign engagement, look after ourselves. And here we are now with Hegseth saying, you know, 2 months is just the beginning. And there is a real question as to whether there is an American appetite for being stuck in this conflict for that long, particularly after, you know, the Afghan conflict went on for 14 years, which Trump put an end to, the involvement in Iraq as well. And, you know, there's this sort of fashionable thing going around in sort of circles discussing the war, that the average duration of a conflict since the Second World War is apparently 3 months. And so some people are saying, well, you know, we can give it another month or so, but then after that we can't do it. And I think that I generally think that's why he was saying 2 months, because you know, he's probably picked up on this speculation.
The arrogance of this, though, the arrogance of them having not learnt from Iraq, the arrogance of them not having looked at a map and thinking, oh, you know, the Strait of Hormuz is going to be a strategically difficult thing here. And, you know, I can totally imagine the idea that they do a little bit of crude maths and think, oh, yeah, 3 months. But, we are being bamboozled by different bits of information that they're assuming that nobody's keeping track of all the different objectives and agendas that they've had, that Donald Trump says after a week the war is nearly over. And now you have Pete Hegseth saying 2 months is nothing. You know, they are relying on the fact that we're going to feel so unsteady because we're being given all these different messages that we will lose all capacity to critique what they're doing. Nonetheless, what they're doing is completely nonsensical. Their objectives keep changing. Now it's all about nuclear weapons because that's about that's the most extreme thing that they can use to justify what they're doing.
And the point is that we're going to feel more pain than the Americans. If this drags on for months. That's why... Well,
let's look at the Financial Times on that, shall we? Oil prices surges after Trump warns that he does not want to lift the blockade on Iran. The paper suggesting, Adam, actually, that blockading Iran is more effective than bombing Iran at this stage. And he thinks the squeeze will mean that, actually, they've got nowhere to put their oil. It starts to damage their oil wells. It actually takes away all of their profits that might fund the war.
Well, that's what Trump has gone for. Yeah. He now seems to... Having previously talked about bombing civilization to an end, he's now saying that it's more effective to blockade their oil production, and that I think they're squeezed like a stuffed pig, he says, or something like that.
Yeah, we had a graphic for oil prices. I don't know if we've still got that.
Yeah.
But, and the point is also the 10-year yields in this country have gone up as well to 2008, which is the peak of the financial crisis. Yeah. So that makes life very difficult for the government.
Yeah, and makes it very difficult for the citizens as well, because it points to inflation, higher prices, and shortages of supply. So it's going to be pretty grim.
Yeah, there's one paper. Should we take a look at all of the front pages now? Let's kick off then, shall we, with The Guardian. It leads with the stabbing of 2 Jewish men in North London, which police have described as a terrorist attack. The Eye says further casualties were avoided thanks to interventions from police and members of the public, hero bystanders, as they call it. The Telegraph quotes the boss of a leading anti-Semitism campaign group who says hatred of Jews in the UK is out of control. The Daily Mirror also leading on the attack, calling it sickening, as the chief rabbi warns visibly Jewish people are not safe. Front of the Daily Star, a chilling photo shows the suspect holding a knife. According to The Sun, witnesses described hate in his eyes as the attacker lunged at the victims. The Financial Times reports that the price of Brent crude oil, as we've just shown you, is now just under $120 a barrel. That is the highest level since the Iran war began. The Metro speaks to the mother of Theo Kempthorne, who died at the age of 8, but whose donated organs helped save the lives of 4 other people. Well, let us now delve inside the newspapers. It was the proroguing of Parliament today, the last PMQs, all ahead of the May elections. What happens after that is anybody's guess. But if we go to the... what is it, The Eye? Yes, The Eye, apologies. Cabinet reshuffle is too risky for Starmer, say senior MPs. Jenny?
Well, I mean, everybody's already assuming that the May elections are going to be a disaster. It's almost like we've moved beyond that piece of news, even though it hasn't happened yet. And we're thinking about what is Starmer going to do. And the assumption is, because what he seems to do when he has a problem is blame other people, that he is going to do some reshuffling rather than, say, carry the can for any expected electoral disaster. I mean, we were talking about this earlier, that there's a suggestion that Angela Rayner is waiting in the wings. Whether or not this is a suggestion that's been hyped up by the right-wing newspapers who love to hate her and know that she gets people angry. But she's not in a position necessarily to come back into the cabinet yet, because it's still pending the outcome of the investigation into her tax affairs. But I always feel I know that political reporting is like this, and it's always about gossip and who is the machinations behind the scenes. But it is amazing, given that we haven't even had these elections yet, that we're already assuming it's going to be bad, looking at all the people who are lining up. Maybe this is just me being naive.
Well, Kemi Badenoch, I mean, looking at Rachel Reeves, who was, almost shouting it. Kemi Badenoch, throughout Prime Minister's questions today, suggested the Chancellor is toast. Where are the rumours coming from? Is there reality to it? Is this anything to save, his own neck, Sir Keir Starmer? The Times reporting that Angela Rayner is ready to challenge Starmer after the local elections.
Yeah, I think things are looking incredibly wobbly at the moment. I mean, we've talked about the global situation. We've got these elections coming up. Of course, the Prime Minister has been undermined, having to basically use the whip to stop him being investigated yesterday. So there is widespread anticipation that he's going to be in a position of political weakness. Now, what this story in The Eye is saying is that he doesn't have the muscle to reshuffle his cabinet. In other words...
You mean they'll say no if he tries to move them?
Yeah, I mean, it's happened before. We've seen it before. Parties saying you can't do that.
I mean, did Ed Miliband refuse to be moved last time?
We did, yes.
Yeah, so he's won.
He's
well,
won.
Unless he gets the job of Chancellor, then he might say yes.
I mean, and the amazing thing was, it was theatre, but today Kemi Badenoch challenged Prime Minister, saying, are you going to, deny that you're going to reshuffle Rachel Reeves? And for whatever reason, he didn't do that. And the point about that is, he's thrown a lot of people over the side in his private office. But, Rachel Reeves, they were the couple at the time of the election, the two of them together, absolutely solid. Prime Minister's spokesman saying, no, she's going to be there for the duration of this Parliament. But if he can't come to the dispatch box and say, I'm not going to sack her, you know, that's not great news. And then we've got interesting observation here that a lot of people are saying that Liz Kendall and Peter Kyle, who perfectly effective cabinet ministers, might be thrown out because they are, quote, not the political stakeholders that Starmer has to win over. In other words, they're not on the left of the party, and it's the left of the party that he's now aiming at. I mean, even when he was talking about the achievements of...
Does the country want to go to the left out of interest?
Not much evidence of it, but...
And what does that mean for the tax take?
But the Labour Party wants to go to the left. I mean, you've got Andy Burnham in the Telegraph saying, time for a move. We know that MPs are worried about...
See the Telegraph there? Yeah.
Worried about the drift to the left towards the Greens. So what the country wants is not necessarily what the Labour Party wants.
But we've had all these international organisations, the OECD, the IMF, who suggest that the tax take in this country is at the highest level for any developed nation and the highest level since goodness knows when. And so if you go to the left, it means you're not going to tackle welfare. It means you're going to have to get money from somewhere. Anyway.
But this is one of the structures of British politics, that effectively, if you're going to change leaders outside of elections,
which people have not voted for.
Yeah,
you know,
well, that's exactly the point. The people who choose are the party, not the country. Whereas a government has to govern for the whole country, which is how, you know, it's how we end up with Liz Truss. It's how we end up with Boris Johnson. And
I would just say in relation to Rachel Reeves, I think the problem with Rachel Reeves is that she and Starmer are cut from exactly the same cloth, and they almost need to have a foil. Then one of them needs to be really exciting, and the other one needs to be a kind of technocrat or whatever. And the problem is they are both just... It's almost like they're both the straight men to each other. There is not a spark there, and there is a feeling of kind of exhaustion. Like, we've seen what both of them have got to offer as a team. So if Keir Starmer was bold, maybe he would be thinking, OK, this is the last person to throw under a bus. This is my last kind of card to play. I could do something exciting.
But you see,
quickly, Adam,
if he chucked him out, it would be the end of financial discipline. It would frighten markets. I mean, we've got Andy Burnham saying, well, you know, basically we could break the rules, borrow more to pay for defence, which is something that, you know, the IMF and everyone else has said you'd be mad to do.
And the bond markets would tweak out again, wouldn't they? Anyway, lots more newspapers to come. Back in a moment.
I urge you not to look away. If Hamas hands the hostages over, they will end this conflict.
The world has been watching. Good to see you again. How are you?
Did she say how he was?
The conditions are awful.
The jets were ordered to come back. Historic day here today. How will you respond if India does launch airstrikes?
They will be allowed to warn.
I'm just going to put some body armor on. I'm Yalda Hakim.
Well, we are taking a look through the newspapers with Adam Bolton and Jenny Kleeman. Jenny, should we go to the Daily Telegraph now, which is Farage's home?
Well, we could go to the Daily Telegraph, but in fact, this is a Guardian story. And what has happened is the Guardian gave Nigel Farage and Reform right of reply. Nigel Farage said they needed more time, during which time Nigel Farage went to the Telegraph and gave them an interview, which is where that story on the front of the Telegraph comes. But essentially, the Guardian had done an investigation saying that he was given a £5 million donation by Christopher Harborne, who is a cryptocurrency billionaire who is British but lives in Thailand. He was given this donation in 2014, shortly before he became an MP, and he did not disclose this as a donation. He has said this wasn't a political donation, it was a gift for the rest of his life to pay for his security, and that's why he didn't declare it. But the rules are that parliamentary rules say that any benefits should be declared for the 12 months before taking up office. And if there's any doubt of whether or not it's a political donation, you should declare it anyway, and it will be checked out. And £5 million is not a trifle. It's not a sum that you would forget about donating
I'm just
or receiving.
Squeeze in, if you don't mind. There's been a response from Reform.
I'm sure there has.
This was a personal, unconditional gift that was given before he was elected. We are confident everything has been declared in accordance with the rules.
Well, there is a problem here, which is that, as far as we can tell, he received this money within a year of being elected as an MP. Now, the argument is that he didn't have to declare it because at the time he received the money, he was saying on the record that he didn't have an intention of standing for Parliament. And if you remember, he then rushed and found that seat in Clacton. So I think this is going to be referred to the House of Commons authorities, and I think he will, at the very least, get a rebuke. I mean, he's been rebuked before for not declaring his earnings. There is a point about a personal gift. I think the rules are you don't have to pay tax on it, but the person who gives it to you has to live for a certain period, isn't it? Something like
7
that.
years.
7 years. Yeah. So what they're saying is he doesn't have to pay tax on it, but that's a sort of conditional thing. But I have to say, this is an extension of a very Trumpian approach to being a politician, because Nigel Farage has already declared that Reform policy, if they get into government, will be friendly towards cryptocurrency, which is exactly...
And he's done a lot of promoting cryptocurrency, him and Kwasi Kwarteng.
Which is exactly the place where the man who's given him the money continues to make his billions.
Let's go to the second page of the Times now. Ed Miliband has withdrawn claims that BP was morally wrong for profiting from the crisis in the Middle East. It's not BP's fault that oil prices have gone up, I suppose, is it?
Well, yes, and apparently economists have looked at this and said that whilst profits were going up, the majority of profits had come from BP's trading arm, which was not subject to the energy profits levy. So, he could say that he misspoke in this case, and he has withdrawn those comments, but he has said it would be completely wrong for a government to stand by and allow companies to make excess profits from a war. Lots of people have made lots of money from this war, though.
Yes. Well, in the meantime, he's being accused of, and I quote the Telegraph here, Soviet controls by the Tories because he's planning to come after your tumble dryers. Ed Miliband, the Energy Secretary, is introducing laws that will phase out the sale of condenser tumble dryers and promote heat pump alternatives to help cut carbon emissions.
Look, this is all classic Red Ed stuff, and it goes back to the earlier conversation we were having about the turmoil in the Labour Party, that, Ed Miliband is clearly determined to come out on top from, of whatever's going on in the Labour Party. A lot of people think he wants to be Chancellor to whoever takes over after Sir Keir Starmer. And this, you know, this attack on BP, saying they're morally wrong when, as you point out, you know, the oil price changes and BP makes profit. And even if they were doing it in their trading arm, that's because they knew their business. I mean, it's not surprising, is it?
Yeah,
but he wants to score a point on it.
Adam, Jenny, run out of time. Lovely to have you here. Thank you both very much indeed. We have sport next. Arsenal draw the first leg of their Champions League semi-final. We will have the details of that now.
I bet right now you often find yourself asking why. Why was a certain decision taken? Why did something happen? Why did they say or do that? I'm Neil Patterson, and it's my job as a journalist to find out why. Just explain why.
It's a difficult one.
Well, I mean, it's massive.
It's a very, very severe situation.
So if you want to make sense of this complicated world, Sky News' new podcast, This Is Why, is your daily fix. One story every day, and we can find out why together. Listen and follow wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Adam Parsons, Sky's Middle East correspondent. We've just entered Gaza. The vista out there is complete destruction. I'll always remember going into Gaza City during the war. All around us was destruction and the sounds of battle. What you see a lot of here are military machines, soldiers, devastation and destruction. What you see very little of are the locals, the Gazans, the people who used to live here, the ghosts of this town. I witnessed the scars of the October the 7th attacks, burnt out homes, bullet holes in walls and bloodstains on the floor.
People were murdered. You have the black flag, you have the yellow flag, people were kidnapped.
Inside this convoy, prisoners released by Israel in exchange for their hostages. The Israelis insist that many of these prisoners are terrorists, but here the Palestinians consider them a blend of freedom fighters and political prisoners. There were tears and there was defiance. This land has been farmed for hundreds of years, but now it's a scene of conflict. Israeli settlers have come to this area to seize land.
They've taken the land that I inherited from my father, and my father inherited from his father.
What would happen if you entered?
Oh, we'll be shot.
This is a place where the past is cherished, but the future is feared. These are the settlers in waiting, keen to start a new life, to annex Gaza for Israel.
The least we can do is just kick them out of our land.
Gaza, which is just 2 miles in that direction, is under attack again. Sky News, get the full story first.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist... Hi, darling.
Beth Rigby, Sky News.
...is being a Sky News journalist. You said to people, I'm not coming back for more, but you have come back for more.
Well, let's kick off.
And make a statement. What can our Prime Minister say to you to not impose tariffs?
He's coming out! What more do you need?
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter? Perfect. Let's bring you some breaking news. Being a Sky News presenter. I began by asking...
Thank you so much.
...trusting us to tell her story. The battle for number 10. Sky News has been given exclusive access. Let me give you a sneak peek. It was the day those present would never forget. Why did you decide to open up and tell your story?
Well, lots of sport tonight. Let's get the details. Here's Mike.
In 2020, Jude Bellingham's move to Borussia Dortmund caught the eye. £25 million for a player who'd only ever played in the Championship. But there's now a wider trend of players outside the Premier League getting moves to Europe's top 4 divisions. So what's behind that?
We look at Championship, we look at League One, we look at League Two. So it's a market we look at a lot, but we are being very realistic at the same time. If you are looking to play very good football, great atmosphere into the stadium, in a very competitive league, and maybe look, to make a step further somewhere when you leave Toulouse, and then a low money, then you should consider us.
Different type of football out here. It's like in England, it's very intense and physical, and I feel like here it's tactically, they've more focus on the tactics and the technical side of things, so you have to be more composed on the ball and figure out patterns of play, and it's good for my football brain.
Not many players get the chance to go from League One to the Bundesliga, so I thought I'd take that jump abroad and see how things go.
When I came, we worked a lot on my defensive shape, my positioning, small details and stuff like that, and I feel like I'm a different player from when I first stepped into this building.
It's not just the top 4 leagues where British and Irish players are settling. There's opportunities across Europe, across all the leagues, and the chance to play for massive clubs.
Central was the first real big name to take that step as well. And obviously me going to Excelsior is not as big as going to Dortmund, but it's kind of the same thing in terms of moving away from home, building a name for yourself outside of England. Loads of young English players started to do it. I think that was the first time from what I knew of anyway. And yeah, it kind of became a trend.
When I went to Greece, especially like playing in front of fans that are like crazy, it changes the whole atmosphere of the game. I've had different types of managers, Italian managers, Dutch managers that want to play different types of football, so I've had to adjust to that as well. When you go to play in Europe, you open yourself to a whole nother market now. Playing in the Conference League, Champions League, Europa League, I'm glad to say that I've done that, It's definitely something I'll look back at and think, wow, I'm grateful for doing that, and I'm glad I took that risk to go and play in Europe.
I made the move wanting to improve myself as a player, go and experience something else. Like I said, a great club like Anderlecht, I can't speak highly enough of the people there, the professionalism of the club, everything like that. And also had in mind that could be a stepping stone to me being able to go there, do well, and obviously come back and try and achieve what I wanted to do, to play in the Premier League regularly.
For teams in England, foreign moves offer good opportunities for loans and different development pathways.
Mike, thank you. Here's the weather now.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News Weather.
Well, the UK can expect some warm sunshine over the next few days, but it will turn more unsettled into the holiday weekend. There'll be a mainly fine start tomorrow. The southwest of Ireland will be wet. Cornwall can expect some patchy rain too, while some eastern Scottish coasts do look rather murky. Southwestern England will see the early rain clearing during the morning. A misty low cloud and fog in the north will soon lift, leaving the UK with almost unbroken sunshine. Southern and western parts of Ireland, meanwhile, will see cloud and rain becoming more extensive. Northeast may well stay quite sunny.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News Weather.
So we can finally bring you the very latest pictures then of the King and Queen. They are in New York and they are at a reception called the Greater Together Reception. It is in partnership with the King's Trust, and it is supposed to be a showcase of the UK's cultural impact on New York through the arts, sports and community initiatives. That before he heads back to Washington with more coverage coming tomorrow.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter? Perfect. Let's bring you some breaking news. Being a Sky News presenter. I began by asking.
Thank you so much.
Trusting us to tell her story. The battle for number 10. Sky News has been given exclusive access. Let me give you a sneak peek. It was the day those present would never forget. Why did you decide to open up and tell your story?